Good afternoon. My name is Robin Merrill, and I am a managing attorney at Pisgah Legal Services. For almost 20 years, I have worked there on issues of housing and homelessness, representing low-income renters. Today, I want to talk to you about what renters need to know in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for joining our broadcast. If you want to comment, you will need to actually click join in order for us to see your comment. And I wanted to let people know that at the same time next week, on Thursday, April 9th, we will be having a discussion for landlords. That will be by volunteer attorney Kenny Hunt. The most important thing that I want to talk to people about today is prioritization of their bills. I understand that there is unprecedented unemployment across the country, and that particularly in Western North Carolina, where we have low wages and a service economy, many people are unexpectedly out of work. The most important thing that you can actually do, though, is pay your rent. We do not, I repeat, we do not have a state moratorium on evictions. The utility companies have been ordered by Governor Cooper to cease cutoffs for non-payment for 60 days and then give people 6 months to pay back what they owe without charging late fees. There are many food assistance programs, and if you are at a loss of health insurance due to your unemployment, you could apply for Medicaid or for health insurance through the marketplace. But what you cannot not do is pay your rent. Right now, the courts are not hearing eviction cases. That's under order of the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. That order only extends to April 17th. And I want people to understand the information that I am giving today applies to North Carolina. If you are listening from another state, your state may have different rules, but I'm going to talk about North Carolina. Additionally, so many things are changing daily. So I am only going to be held to what I say right here, right now, because even this afternoon, information could change. I would not be surprised if Justice Beasley or Governor Cooper extend the date that most court actions are closed, but that hasn't happened yet. So what that means is that right now, if you don't pay your rent, your landlord can go and file an eviction against you, but it will not be heard until after April 17th. If you need additional monetary resources, apply for unemployment. And you could also talk to your landlord about waiting for your stimulus check. It's very important that you talk to your landlord. Many of them are sympathetic. We are hearing from multiple landlords who want to help, but also many who are facing their own mortgage payments. But they may be able to get a forbearance from their mortgage company. So having an honest communication with your landlord is one of the most important things that you can do. As I said, there is no eviction moratorium in North Carolina. So please don't think of this as a time where you can take advantage of this situation. You also, if you have the money to pay the rent, pay the rent. You don't want to get so far behind that you cannot get caught up. Now, there are some exceptions, and that is that there is a federal eviction moratorium for federally backed rental properties. That is public housing, Section 8 vouchers, HUD-VASH vouchers for veterans, project-based Section 8, low-income housing tax credits, USDA rural development properties. And what the federal government has said is that people there cannot be evicted for non-payment of rent through July 24th. They can be evicted for a lease violation. They cannot be charged a late fee. But it would be very unwise to wait until July 24th and then owe such a large debt that you cannot come up with the money. So it's better to try to at least talk to them and to negotiate some type of arrangement. Unfortunately, some landlords may get frustrated with this situation of not being able to take people to court for eviction, and they may attempt some other method. The only legal way to evict a person in North Carolina is through the court process. Any other method is illegal, and we call them self-help evictions. And we see things like a landlord padlocking a door, terminating utilities, removing a person's belongings. And if that happens to you, know that it is illegal. You should call the sheriff's department, and you should call Pisgah Legal Services. The courts are open to emergency type cases, and this is one of those case types that the court would allow us to file on your behalf. I've received a few questions early before the broadcast that I want to address, and then as time permits, I will try to answer more of your questions in the comments. What should people do if they've been given a 30-day notice to vacate but have nowhere else to go and want to obey the county's orders of sheltering in place? Your health and safety is your number one concern, and it should be in this circumstance. If you've been given a 30-day notice to vacate and it expires between now and April 17th, your landlord cannot file a court action until after April 17th. As I said before, any other method of removal is illegal. What happens if people do not leave their units after the 30-day notice? What can landlords do? They can only take you to court, and they have to wait on the court's reopening for hearing these types of cases. How long might it be before a court date is set? I don't know. It is up to each court administrator for their particular county to set their own court schedule. Understand that there is limited staff, limited magistrate time to hear these cases. So it could be a while, but there's just no guarantee or really any way to know at this point. If people in these situations leave their unit before the court date, what happens? Then you just leave. There's no action filed against you. There should be no record in criminal court. The person then asked what will show up on their criminal records. Absolutely nothing. Eviction is not a criminal process, and staying in a unit after you've been told to leave is not a crime. You have the right to the court process, and that is simply a civil action, not a criminal action. A question from our friends at Homeward Bound, who are trying to get client extensions when they are asked to vacate during this pandemic. How do you recommend we talk to landlords? Any specific language we should use? I think one thing to know is that landlords typically need the income from the rental properties. And they're not, normally we are in a very, very tight rental market and there's someone ready to move in the next day. But we were also in this pandemic are facing a situation where if people have stable housing, they're going to stay there. And I doubt that there are as many people lined up to take a rental as there would be normally. So I think that the conversation with the landlord, promising what payment that you can make, and for a person working with an agency such as Homeward Bound, guaranteeing that payment is probably the best leverage that you have. But you do have leverage in this situation. And I would highly encourage you to simply try to work the situation out. This person says, I know that the courts are not hearing eviction cases. However, my lease says that my landlord will give me 7 days to vacate after notice and that she will keep my possessions if they're still at the house. Well, it doesn't work that way. The law is very clear and has a process laid out for eviction. And if the lease says 7 days notice, then that's the amount of notice she's required to give. But then her only remedy is to take you to court. And eviction cases start out in small claims court, and you have the right to appeal them to district court regardless of the outcome. And only after there is a final judgment and 10 days have passed, 10 days have passed from a small claims judgment or 30 days from a district court judgment, can a landlord seek a writ of possession. Once they've gotten the writ of possession, the sheriff's department serves it. You're given a date and time that you'll be removed, and you still have 7 days after that to get your possessions out of the rental unit. At no time is your landlord allowed to keep your belongings. If you don't remove them after the 7 days, the law has a procedure for your landlord to sell them or donate them to a charity, but they cannot hold these items over your head like as a lien to force money out of you. And if someone tries to do that, you should call us right away, because that is another illegal eviction tactic. The next person says, I know that realtors for the next 2 weeks can't physically show any properties, but when the county order terminates, do renters have any legal authority to stop showings because of the virus and the risks it will bring, even if your current lease allows it? Do health concerns like the virus override leases that state a property can be shown? Thank you for your help. Well, you're welcome. And I got to tell you, I don't really know the answer. We are in uncharted waters in regards to this virus and this pandemic. Know that if your lease does not allow landlords to come onto the property, then they don't have the right to do that. If, as this person's lease, it does allow for them to come on for showings, I would try to insist that anyone involved use personal protective equipment, such as a mask, gloves, have hand sanitizer or disinfecting wipes available, and try to do the best that you can to get them through that. You could also offer for the landlord to come in and make a video to offer a virtual showing of the property. This person says, I would like to know how to negotiate rent relief for a commercial lease during this period of time. What are our rights and what is the best way to do this? So I am no authority on commercial leases. My work has been on residential leases, but I think some of the same principles apply. Talking to the property owner, trying to work through situations, and if you're a small business, apply for the small business loans that are becoming available, I think as soon as tomorrow, that organizations can apply for. And talking to them about that, about when that might be available. So I'm now ready. Now, I had one more, and this was from a woman who she and her special needs child have had to relocate, and her possessions are in the prior unit. She wanted to know what assistance is available to help her find stable housing during this time. And my answer is the same resources that are available all the time. And in terms of finding housing, that's not a whole lot. And my recommendation to you is that you call United Way's 211 or go to 211.com. So I have some time to take the questions from the comments, and it looks like there's quite a few of them. I will do that to the best of my abilities. And if I'm unable to answer your question, I do hope that you will go on our website to the frequently asked questions section. The first person says, hi, so our landlord has given us 30 days notice for April 30th. Can they do this at this time? Yes, they can. And really, whether or not that's an effective notice is going to depend on what your lease says. But there's nothing prohibiting your landlord from terminating your lease at this time, unless you live in some of the federally subsidized housing programs that I mentioned before. Even if they do that, you still have the right to the court process. This person says we're six-year tenants in good standing and need more time because we're in quarantine. I think those are things that you can use to try to negotiate with your landlord. Those are, if you've got 6 years of a strong history of paying rent on time, then there's no reason why that person should be willing to talk to you. And then someone asks, is there any support for residential landlords who choose not to evict and own the property in full, meaning financial help due to lack of receiving rent? I don't know the full answer to that question. I know that resources are becoming more available all the time. And I would encourage you to check out the One Buncombe Fund and perhaps have your tenants check that out. There may be more help for the tenants and less for you as the property owner, but that's okay. And if they can receive that assistance, it passes on to you. Then someone asks, what if you're about to sign a year lease on an apartment and you lose your job in the next few weeks over COVID-19? That's a really scary situation, and I certainly empathize about what you're going through. Apply for unemployment. Look at some of the employment opportunities that are becoming available. One of the things that I see is sort of a shift to the retail companies who are in business right now, some of the more essential retail businesses. I saw that Ingles is hiring 500 people, that other companies are looking to hire while many are laying off. You also hopefully will receive the stimulus check and can put that toward future rent payments. Next, someone asks, if a landlord gets amelioration on their mortgage from their bank, do they have to pass it on? No, there's no requirement that they pass it on, but I'd hate for the community to find out that they didn't. Is it legal to give someone a 2-day notice after living in a place for months? It is a verbal agreement between roommates. So the law lays out the types of time requirements for notice to vacate, and none of them are 2 days, unless it is a week-to-week rental. So really, you need to really, this question's too hard for me to answer with just that information. So I would encourage you to either call our office or to apply online for our services at pisgahlegal.org and then click on the button that says apply for help. Hi, Robin. What about tenants in houses right now that have recently gone under contract for sale? Seems sales of houses are still happening, so there might be folks out there and then it's cut off. Yes, sales are still happening. A tenant in a rental who has a lease, the new owner takes subject to that lease, meaning that the new owner has to honor that lease. And it means that the new owner has to either let them continue to live there or to evict them lawfully through the court process. The next person says, I'm a social worker and am wondering if my client should be concerned about if the sheriff's office will be following up with notice to vacate after April 17th, or are they not accepting requests from landlords? So let me make it real clear how the process works. And that is the sheriff's department doesn't take any action until they get a writ of possession from the court. That has to be issued by the court and signed by the clerk of court's office. And then when that happens, that's an order that the sheriff's department has to obey. But you can't get that order for just any circumstance. The landlord still has to go through the process, get the order for possession, wait the prescribed time period. And if a landlord obtained the right to get this writ of possession between March 16th and April 17th, then they can go and get it on April 17th. Sheriff's department would have to deploy their staff in whatever way they do that. And there would be some limited amount of time afterward before a person has to move out. But there's no, the sheriff's department does not accept requests from landlords. They have to go through the court process. Some nice messages saying thank you. We are so grateful to you for all your work in this timely forum. You're very, very welcome. We are happy to be here to help. And I want to reiterate to people that we have frequently asked questions on our website. We have links to other resources on our website. I encourage you to look at those. If you need our assistance, please do not hesitate to apply for our assistance, either through our website. There's an online application in both English and Spanish, or you can call our office at 828-253-0406. Speak with our receptionist, who will get you in touch then with someone who will take your application. We also offer a 1-800 number if you need that type of service, 1-800-489-6144. And Let me see if there are any new questions. So someone asks, are landlords forgiving rent or postponing rent when they have postponement of mortgage payment? I don't know the answer to that. I suspect postponing instead of forgiving. I think it's going to be a rare circumstance where rent is forgiven, but not to say that it wouldn't happen. Okay, here's a question. My sister and I have 3 kids living in a month-to-month rental. Our landlord gave us 30-day notice to move out in the middle of this crisis. I am unemployed. We have 3 kids completing school virtually until June. How do we proceed during a stay home, stay safe mandate while unemployed with kids needing stability to complete school and stay healthy? We cannot even view rentals at this time. What are the legal grounds we can stand on right now? How do we reply to this request to vacate? So I'm going to ask you to apply for our services so that we can delve more into your situation. There's a lot going on here, and depending on the reason the landlord gave you the 30-day notice to vacate, there may be some defenses available to you. I would say, though, that you're in the exact worst position in terms of not being able to find a new place because you can't safely get out and look for children at home who need care, and you're unemployed with no income. I hope that you and your sister both, if possible, apply for unemployment. You will have the stimulus check. I know those funds don't really go as far as you need them to. But I did start out by saying to prioritize rent over other bills. And I really stand by that, with utilities not being allowed to shut off for 60 days and being required to offer and being required to offer 6-month payment plans, with there being food assistance and other health assistance. Rent is the place where you really need to try to make the payment. There are community resources available to help with rent. And 211 is a great resource to find those. Also, there's the newly created One Bunkum Fund. And I encourage people to seek out those resources because they're being created just for this instance for people to help. I want to repeat some disclaimers I gave at the beginning, and that's that this information is specific to North Carolina. And if you have tuned in from another state, I so appreciate your support. I kind of hope my family in Florida and my family in West Virginia are listening, but what I'm saying doesn't apply to you. Also, we will be having a session for landlords this time next Thursday, and talking about some of the resources available to them to defray the cost. And the biggest disclaimer is this stuff is changing every day. We set up some things in the office for another program yesterday, and before I went to bed last night, everything had changed. So I had to go and redo some things this morning, and that's okay. But the information that I'm giving to you today is really relevant right now, and it may change. If it does change in a significant way, then we will come back with another broadcast so that we can share that information. We will also update it on our website. It looks like I've gotten some more questions. If my landlord gives me a discount on rent, am I legally liable for the balance of the rent when the crisis is over? That's between you and your landlord and what you work out with them. So folks who are receiving federal subsidy cannot be given a 30-day notice until after July 27th. Is that correct? What about for behavioral lease violations? So that is correct. It's actually July 24th, and that's the 120-day moratorium on federally subsidized housing evictions for non-payment of rent. If they have a lease violation for some other reason, then they can receive a notice and be evicted prior to July 24th. Someone asks, when is the stimulus check expected to arrive, and can landlords expect a portion of that toward rent? I don't know the answers to those questions. Aren't many companies doing video tours of property instead of in-person viewing? So if someone is looking for a rental, they can still view the property. I think that is happening to some extent. It's probably not happening across the board, but it could be a way for someone to look for a new property. Someone writes to say, I am an asthma patient, which places me at high risk for this virus. My doc wrote me out for a quarantine for 2 weeks and said to reassess after that. My job is not paying me for this time off, but there is no work from home options at this time. Do I have any options as far as getting paid if I can't go back to work after my 2 weeks? And if I can't go back per doctor's orders, can I lose my job? Or is this a question I should call about? This is a question you should call about. There has been some recently passed legislation through the CARES Act that provides some protection for employees, and you may actually be entitled to be paid for those 2 weeks that the doctor wrote you out. I don't know enough to answer that question on this broadcast, but I highly recommend that you call and talk to us so that we can help you figure out your situation. Okay, looks like that's the end of my questions. It's 2:26 and we had only set aside 30 minutes for this broadcast. Thank you so very, very much for joining today. It is my pleasure to be able to talk to you and to offer you this information. And please know that Pisgah Legal Services is here for you during this time, and as we have been for the last 42 years in Western North Carolina, and we look forward to working with you to get through this pandemic. God bless you all.